March Madness just tipping off, I think it is the perfect time to be ranking some of the best prospects coming into the draft. This draft cycle, we have a multitude of talented and versatile players coming into the NBA, and it's going to be very interesting to dive deeper into these prospects as the draft process goes along. There are multiple offensive and defensive prodigies into this draft, and I'm going to be very excited to be covering all of them as we get closer to the NBA draft. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, these are the top 10 college prospects heading into the 2025 NBA draft. I kind of want to start with some honorable mentions. There's just a few guys that made my list or that did not make my list that I would like to talk about extremely quickly. First guy I want to talk about is Jace Richardson. Now, this is a guy that was not on my big board to start out the season, but over the past few weeks, he's really impressed me with his off-ball play and his shooting and the toughness that he shows when he's getting into the lane and he's getting into the teeth of the defense and he's playing in the restricted area. This is somebody that gets fouled a lot. This is somebody that doesn't show hesitation of getting to the rim, and he's a really good shooter on the dribble and off the dribble, off the ball. So this is somebody that I do believe can come in and raise an offense, potentially somebody that can be a very good off-ball player, just finding open gaps in the defense and being able to shoot off motion and shoot off the spot and just shoot spot up. So I do believe Jace Richardson has a field there. I do believe that he is very bad defensively though, and that does come with being a combo guard, more of a two guard that is 6'2" or 6'3", and we've seen shorter players in the NBA talk about how you have to fight harder if you're somebody that's 6'2", 6'3" on defense, just because you're going to be attacked relentlessly on the other side of the ball, because we know we're moving into an NBA that is more based on mismatch hunting as much as they possibly can, and I just don't think Jace Richardson fights through screens hard enough. I think he gets lost off ball, he watches the ball a lot, and I just don't think he has the physical strength to be a competent defensive player. But once again, this is off of what I see right now. I do think Jace Richardson is a fantastic player, and I think he's going to be a really good offensive player. We're just going to have to see what happens when he gets to the NBA. And by the way, if the Orlando Magic don't make it to the playoffs and they have a lottery pick, I would love for them to take a swing on Jace Richardson, because I do think they have the pieces defensively to make up for something that he can be missing on that side of the ball. The next player I'm going to be talking about is Jeremiah Fears, and I do think Jeremiah Fears has a little bit more upside than Jace Richardson, because I think Jeremiah Fears is a better creator with the ball in his hand. I like his handle. I like his shiftiness. I like the way he's able to play in the mid-range. I like the way he shoots off the dribble beyond the three-point line. I have a few concerns just because I do think he has the first step to be able to get past defenders, but I just don't necessarily think he has the strength to be able to be a consistent rim finisher. Now, he has shown some signs in college that he can be a consistent rim finisher, so I'm not going to hold that against him, but I do necessarily think there's a strength aspect to him as of right now that could stop him from being an elite rim finisher. And the last player I want to talk about is Rasheer Fleming. Now, Rasheer Fleming is a player that does necessarily have a lot of tools that I see as that can transition to the NBA really well. He's really good in transition. He's really strong. He finishes through contact, great rebounder, and can be a versatile defender. The only thing is, I do have a player that is better than him at almost all of those things, a little bit ahead of him, and I do necessarily like the bigs a little bit more as prospects more than Rasheer Fleming. So with all that being said, let's get to the top 10. At number 10, I have Asa Newell out of Georgia University. I do think that Asa Newell has a very intriguing aspect to his game. The way he's able to run in transition, the way he's able to be a willing three-point shooter and mid-range shooter. He's a solid help side rim protector. That's something that I think can transfer to the NBA really well. Very good rebounder. Somebody that can be a pick and pop and pick and roll candidate. I just don't necessarily know if there's something that he's fantastic at. I look at all these assets that he has and that he does bring to the game as a prospect, and I say, what are you fantastic at, or what are you really good at to make your key component of the game? Because I do feel like he's a really good defender or a good defender. I just don't know if he's to the level of Khaman Maluach or Colin Murray Boyles or Cooper Flagg or VJ Edgecombe. I don't know if he's that good to make that his calling card. I do think he's really good offensively, but sometimes that jumper can be inconsistent. Sometimes his finishing around the rim can be inconsistent. Sometimes he doesn't make rotations defensively well enough. And that's some things that you're just going to have to look at when you're trying to get a guy and really mold him into being the perfect NBA player for your situation or for your team. So I do think that holds him back just a little bit. But when we look at all the tools that he possesses right now and everything that he can get better at, you see the avenues of where he can be great. He could be a great athletic big, run and dunk big, just a guy that can catch lobs, block shots, rebound the ball, can be a connective passer. But then you see some type of offensive game where he's hitting a three every now and then, or he's hitting mid-ranges every now and then, and he's catching lobs and he's making these reads in the short roll. So he's a little bit confusing to me, but I am really in love with the intangibles and the attributes that he has right now. The further we get along in his game, I'm going to be really intrigued to see what he brings to the table. The next player I want to talk about in my number 9 spot is Derik Queen. Now, Derik Queen is very, very, very interesting because he does have a talent at the big man position that, once again, we just don't see as often. But then again, I don't know if it's as valued as you guys would think, because we see a guy like Derik Queen who puts the ball on the floor a lot, is a very good decision maker as a big, can finish through contact, doesn't have a consistent jump shot. His handle could be a little wonky at times, but once again, he is a big. But this is a big that I believe is truly very ball dominant and seems like the offense has to run through him. I don't necessarily love his foot speed. I don't love his rim protection either, but in the end, your floor is like a really good rebounder, somebody that can make decisions on his own, somebody who can get a good shot for himself, somebody that can be physically imposing down low. But then again, it's just I see the makeup of these type of players in the NBA. I see the Domantas Sabonis, I see the Alperen Sengun, I see the Nikola Jokic, and this is just me saying that Derik Queen is a really, really talented player. He's a fantastic player. But what leaves me questionable for Derik Queen and how he'll translate to the NBA is what team is going to really give you the ball and let you be the center focal point of the offense based on where you're projected. Because when we look at Derik Queen and where he's projected in the draft, it's from 10 to 14. If we take a look relatively, those are probably teams like the Bulls, the Trailblazers, maybe the Spurs have another pick down there. The Phoenix Suns, whoever has the Phoenix Suns picks, which is the Rockets. I don't necessarily know if they're going to be going to go get another center. The Dallas Mavericks may have a pick in that area. The Miami Heat, if they have their pick, I don't necessarily know for sure off the top of my head. The Orlando Magic. I don't know if there's a team in that section that is willing to say, hey, Derik Queen, you are the focal point of our offense. And then it comes to now I'm going to be playing a lot more off the ball. I'm going to be having to catch the ball in short roll, or I'm going to have to be playing in the dunker spot, or I'm just going to have to be a putback guy or a guy that rebounds. And then I just don't think his defensive floor coming into the NBA is that high either, because I do think teams play in space a lot. I don't think Derik Queen is the best rim protector. I don't think he moves well on his feet to be a rotational type of rim protector or a help side rim protector. So it's just me looking at what he does at the collegiate level versus what NBA teams are going to ask of him. And maybe because once again, I could be 100% wrong. Derik Queen could come in and be fantastic offensively, and a team is saying, hey, Derik Queen, you're going to be the focal point of our offense, and maybe it works out for him. This is why we do the draft. You know, it's such a swing, because who knew back in 2014 that a player being picked during a Taco Bell commercial will be a 3-time MVP and one of the greatest offensive players in basketball. So I'm 100% sure that there's a team that's going to bet on his talent. But what scares me is how is he going to move that talent from college to the NBA? And is he going to be able to adjust in time for a team to say, okay, we have a building block, we know what we're doing with this player, and we're going to move forward. Up next is a player that I'm going to be talking about a lot more as the weeks go along, and that's Khaman Maluach. I think Khaman Maluach has improved a lot from the beginning of the season till now. Coming into the season, I was very questionable about how Khaman Maluach would be able to generate offense, because I didn't necessarily love his handle. He isn't a good outside shooter. He would just have to be a guy that has the ball in his hands a lot, but I was high on his defense because his hands are phenomenal. The way he's able to play passing lanes, the way he's able to poke balls free, the way he's able to disrupt passes and disrupt pick and rolls. He's a very strong body, so he's going to be able to guard post against some stronger wings, or maybe even some fives, the way that fives are starting to be more agile and slim down a little bit more. He's a really good rebounder. He's a really good rotational shot blocker and help side rim protector. Just as a defender, I think he's really good in that aspect. But as of lately, he's gotten a lot better as a driver. Somebody that can finish in contact, somebody that has a good enough handle to be able to drive to the rim, somebody that can cut to the basket and finish around the rim and be a good rebounder, somebody that finishes around the rim and gets fouled often. And he's a pretty decent free throw shooter. I don't have the numbers next to me because I just don't know where to find college stats, like, to be completely honest, especially compared to the NBA. but I definitely do think there's some top 10 potential, especially if there's a team there that just jumps up from maybe like 13 to 9 that may want to just add some defense onto their team and add somebody that could be a switchable defender, because I do see him guarding a little bit more frail bigs and being able to switch on the wings or maybe even some guards. So he's very intriguing defensively, and I think he's improved enough offensively to be like, yeah, this is a top 10 pick. At number 7, I have Kasparas Jack, and he's definitely fallen a few tiers for me just because I think the guys ahead of him have improved, and I do think he has fallen off just a little bit to where his separation as a ball handler has been very concerning and his jump shot hasn't been falling. But to the end of that, I have seen enough from him to say that I'm still confident, and I could argue that he could be ahead of the next guy on my list, but with the two-way ability of my number 5 spot, I just don't know if I would be able to move him up to the top 5 again. But I'm still confident in his playmaking. I'm still confident in his off-ball scoring. Shooters usually are by variance. They're not going to hit shots all the time. So I'm not necessarily too discouraged about what Kasparas Jack is doing, but I do question some of the shot making ability and some of the turnovers with his ball handling, because sometimes I feel like he does over dribble in a half court situation, and sometimes it does take him a little bit longer to get off the ball, which is something that may not be that big of an issue in the NBA, because I don't know how much of the ball handling responsibilities he's going to take, especially compared to which team he goes to. But as an off-ball player, I think he's really good. His finishing around the rim has regressed a little bit, but I do believe in his first step and him being able to get downhill, and especially him being able to attack closeouts and just make guys pay for being late on rotations. So I think Kasparas Jack is still a really good player, but then again, it just makes me question how he's going to be able to create separation when the ball is in his hand, and how is that going to look if he is going to be taking the main ball handler responsibilities if he's on a certain team. Up next, we're going to be talking about Tre Johnson, who I looked at his averages. His assist numbers doesn't show how good of a playmaker he is. I do think he sees the floor really well, and I think he makes good decisions with the ball in his hand and quick decisions when the ball is in his hand. And I do think he's a fantastic off-ball player. I do think he plays in the mid-range really well, whether it's coming off pin downs, creating a shot for himself, playing out of the post, which I don't see a lot of guards of this caliber in my rankings do a lot. So I do think he does that really well. The only problem I have with Tre Johnson is just the rim pressure. I don't think he creates rim pressure often, and that's going to be really hard to justify when you're at the NBA level and you're going to have to create some type of easy looks for yourself. I do think him being a great off-ball player does kind of rectify that just a little bit, but it would be a lot better if he can he could put pressure on the rim with the ball in his hand. And going into our top 5, my number 5 prospect going into the 2025 NBA draft is going to be VJ Edgecombe. I do believe the improvements that he made as a shooter are here to stay. No, I don't think he's going to be shooting 40+% from the field in his rookie year, but I do think he's going to be a respectable jump shooter. I do respect his play out of the pick and roll because I think he has a quick first step. I do think his body control around the rim could get a little bit better because sometimes he just leans into getting the contact and not finishing around the rim. So there are times where he may have gotten fouled, or he may try to sell a foul, and that just leads into a bad shot or maybe a turnover. As for a defensive player, I do think he's a very good point of attack defender. I think he runs great in transition. I think he's a solid rebounder for his size. I think he's a good rim protector for his size. Now, the only thing that really slows me down from having him any higher is I do think people are looking at him as he's 6'5". I think VJ Edgecombe's like 6'3", 6'2". So that is what's slowing me down from him being like almost a top 3 prospect, because everything else that I'm seeing, he can handle the ball. He's getting better as a shooter. He's a great point of attack defender. Him being 6'3" or maybe even 6'2" doesn't look like he has the best wingspan. That makes me a little bit questionable about how effective he can be. Because if I look at his game, I do see an effective player and somebody who can make a difference defensively for a team. But it kind of varies once we get the actual measurements. At number 4, I have Ace Bailey. And once again, I'm still a guy that's very high on Ace Bailey. I came into this draft process with Ace Bailey at number 2. And if I had it my way, I still think Ace Bailey could be the best scorer in this draft. I mean, a lot of people talk about his handle, which I understand. A lot of people talk about the rim pressure, which I understand. But a lot of things that I see in Ace Bailey's game is, one, he's a fantastic tough shot maker. I think he adjusts to not having the best ball handle really well, whether it's hop stepping to the rim, whether it's fadeaways, whether it's pull up jump shots. And a lot of things that I look at it is, he's a great off-ball player. He's 6'9". He has a lot of potential defensively as a help side rim protector, maybe even an on-ball defender. I think these are going to be one of the guys that's going to be amazing off-ball, probably solid defensively on-ball. But my biggest thing is, you can teach a good ball handle. You can teach a good ball handler. Ace Bailey can be put in the right situation where he becomes a solid ball handler to where he can create his own shot more effectively. You cannot teach being 6'9" and being able to get up and down the court the way Ace Bailey does. So the athleticism that you pair on top of the off-ball play and the tough shot making makes me believe that this is going to be one of the better scorers in this draft. So that's what keeps me high on Ace Bailey. A lot of people are still out on Ace Bailey, which I don't necessarily agree with. I do think he is going to become a really good offensive player, and I do think there's a world where he can be a really good defensive player as well. But with these top three, my top three prospects, they're locked. I think these guys are franchise-altering players. I really do. For those who have not watched my film breakdown on Khaman Maluach, or Khaman Maluach, there's a guy in my comments who said I said his name wrong. Still don't know which one to pick. I've heard Maluach, I've heard Maluach. I'm going to go with Maluach because I've heard that more. But Khaman Maluach, see, I did it again. I think Khaman Maluach is a franchise-altering defensive big. When a few months ago or a few weeks ago, I don't know how long ago it was, but I was on the Hoop Talk podcast. If you follow us on TikTok, if you watch our episodes weekly, you know what I'm talking about. I said there's a world where Khaman Maluach comes into the NBA and he's one of the better defensive bigs in the NBA. I think Khaman Maluach is a generational defensive big. I really do. And I know we hear a lot of generational. I do not think there have been a lot of big defensive prospects as talented as Khaman Maluach. We look at some of the defensive bigs coming into prior drafts. We look at the Evan Mobleys. We look at the Chet Holmgrens. We look at the Victor Wembanyama's. I think Maluach puts himself right into some of those categories defensively. The way that Duke runs their defensive scheme, where they rotate heavy, they switch heavy, they play at the level in the pick and roll, Khaman Maluach makes that system go. And it's crazy because I think Duke has two of the best defensive prospects in this draft. I think they have the two best defensive prospects in this draft. And the way that Khaman Maluach is able to switch on wings, switch on guards and still be effective, play bigs in the post because he's 7'2", 250 plus. He has amazing speed, the way he's able to rotate on the perimeter, the way he's able to be a help side rim protector, the way he's able to be a really good rebounder. He is a special defensive prospect to where if I'm the Washington Wizards and I fall to the third pick, I'm upset, but I'm not upset, because I think there's a world where if you get either one of these three picks, you're going to be building something extremely special. I think Khaman Maluach has the talent to really build, to be the anchor of a top 5 defense for years to come. And I'm not saying he's walking into the NBA and being able to switch on a Jalen Brunson. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is he's going to have a leg ahead of the race before some of these defensive prospects and before some of these young bigs in the NBA. I think he's really quick with his feet. I think he's really fast in general. He's extremely strong. He's 7'2". He's a great rebounder. And what happens when an NBA team says, you know what, we're not going to have you play at the level and pick and roll. We're going to have you play drop more, which Khaman Maluach is great at. He's great at playing drop. He's great at reacting to jump shots and getting a hand up in time without fouling. I think he's a very talented defensive prospect. And if you think I'm bullshitting, I just dropped a film breakdown on it, breaking down the film. So if you want to go watch Khaman Maluach on defense, go watch it. Go watch it. I promise you, he's special. At number 2, this is where I'm going to go Dylan Harper. There has been some noise about Dylan Harper going number 1. I never really subscribed to that noise. I think Dylan Harper's a fantastic player, don't get me wrong. But I just never thought he was a better prospect than Cooper Flagg, which, spoiler alert, he's my number 1. But Dylan Harper, the way he's able to play off ball, which is something I've been seeing more recently. And by the way, if you have any stat websites where I can find college basketball stats, that would be very helpful, because this is all eye test. This is all eye test. I think his ball handle is extremely above average. The way he's able to get downhill, the pace that he plays with, the way he's able to kind of switch his directions on command, his reactions to when defenses try to double him or when defenses try to clog their area and just get to the rim. Despite that, the way he's able to finish around big men and the craftiness he shows getting to the basket and finishing around the rim. I think he's a really good shooter. I think he plays off ball extremely well. Dylan Harper is going to be a great scorer. He's going to be a great scorer, and I just think he can score with volume that a lot of these guys earlier in the draft just can't. And last but not least, I have Cooper Flagg. We've talked about Cooper Flagg a lot. I think Cooper Flagg is the guy in the draft that everybody has been talking about, but I want to show love to a lot of these prospects. There's still more prospects that I'm going to show love on, because once again, the draft process is heating up more and more and more and more. Next thing you know, the draft lottery is out, then the combine is out, then the draft is here, and then we're going to be talking about draft day winners and losers, and then I'm going to be dropping my way too early 2026 NBA mock draft. But Cooper Flagg, once again, this season, he has taken a lot of on-ball responsibilities, and the way he's able to really shine in that role has been phenomenal. I think his decision making is great. I think him getting downhill with the ball in his hand or without the ball in his hand is great. I think he's gotten a lot better as a pull-up shooter since the season has started. And I think that jump shot as a whole, whether it's mid-range or three-point line, has gotten a lot more consistent. I don't think I would bank on his jump shot at the higher level, but maybe that's just me being a little bit more hesitant on just thinking shooters can be elite, thinking rookies can just be an elite shooter coming into the NBA. But I think Cooper Flagg is great, man. And as a defender, I don't think there's guys that play harder than him with a higher intensity than Cooper Flagg. And that's something that I feel as though is lost in some of these rookie prospects or draft prospects, just the intensity and the level that he plays every single night. That's something that's going to spread like a wildfire for whatever team he goes to. And the way he's gotten better as an offensive player, I don't think there's a world where I can say Cooper Flagg isn't going to be averaging 23 and 11 or 23 and 10 a night for a team while being a top 5 defensive player in the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching this video. I'm going to be dropping a lot more draft content. I've kind of slowed down on the draft content as the NBA playoffs are starting to ramp up and storylines in the NBA have started to heat up. So I'm sorry about that. We're going to be dropping more draft content pretty soon. I'm very excited about that. So for all the people who like this type of content, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate everybody watching these videos, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.